make sense. Our new Fibre Plus packages offer everything you get with our standard unlimited fibre broadband plans, plus award-winning online security, plus guaranteed fixed prices from just £26 a month for 18 months, plus the latest Amazon Echo Dot with Alexa, plus an Amazon Smart Plug. When you add it all up, it just makes sense. Fibre Plus packages from TalkTalk. For everyone, search TalkTalk Fibre. Offer ends 8 September. £4.95 post and packing. T's and C's at talktalk.co.uk.
Andrew Castle on LBC.
With Sage, financial tools to take control of business.
22 minutes past 6, Monday the 2nd of August, talking about Adam Peaty. He's been rather dismayed. The reaction to a tweet in which he said he's going to take some time off, take a month away from the pool, gold medalist of course, to prioritise his mental health. Look, it could easily seem like I'm criticising here. I'm not. I'm just questioning the use of mental health. What is it? If you've been the centre of everybody's attention, including your own family, and you've been at the centre absolutely of your own attention for years and years, trying to achieve something, a high ambition, an excellent standard achieved, all the cameras in the world pointed at you, you're absolutely a star and at the peak of your powers. If then that race ends, you do the press, you have the high, then you come down, you take the holiday, you take a rest. But to prioritise mental, it's just become an expression, hasn't it? And I just think it can easily take away from people who have mental health problems which may be clinical. If somebody confuses definitions of mental health, you could ask 1,000 experts on mental health to define it, and they wouldn't be able to. It's something that is almost, it's untouchable in some ways. Impossible to define, isn't it? 0345 6060 973. Of course, Tyrone Mings, the England defender who did so well, great guy too, I know it a bit. He was talking about how his mental health plummeted in the build-up to Euro 2020. Look, every time I took to a court in a big match, be it two Olympics or all those Wimbledons and everything else, you have self-doubt. You're extremely nervous. Before you go and do a job, if you're making a presentation, you're in the wings, you're going to be uptight. It's natural. It's not a sign of ill health to have doubt, is it? So perhaps we're being too loose with the way we're talking about mental health now. Just because you're uptight or you cry doesn't need to say you're mentally ill, does it? Brenda is in St Ives. Hello, Brenda.
Hi, Andrew. I absolutely agree with you. I think these two words, mental health, has become like another disease. I've had two major breakdowns in my life, and I can assure you, you know when you've got serious mental health problems. And I've been in competitive sport, like yourself, athletics, tennis. Yeah, so you have a big adrenaline rush, and then you come down. But don't they just say I'm taking time off to recover from such a grueling 4 years or whatever it is? It's just like another, I don't know, I just can't have this, all these new innuendos that they add on to,
I just think it's become the sort of the go. I think we're in.
It's a go-to one.
Well, it's a bit of a catch-all phrase, isn't it? And again, it sounds like to even talk about it is to criticise. It really isn't that. I'm just concerned that it takes away from mental illness.
Absolutely. I agree
Really needs a
entirely.
clinical treatment, and
They soon know whether they were in, when you've had a breakdown and you've had aggravated anxiety, it is horrendous. And it just seems to be, it's like the sheep follow the sheep. So Osaka did it, then Simone Biles, now he's doing it. Let's add it on to what I've got to say. It's just ridiculous, Andrew.
All right, well, Brenda, thank you. It's a point of view, and I have sympathy for it. But and I'm going to say it again. We don't know what Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, and others in very high profile, very famous, yes, well rewarded, but that's got nothing to do with it. If you are in the cauldron of fame and attention, the downs are sort of amplified, and the ups extraordinary.
22 new cases reported, and a further 24 people have died within 28 days of a positive test result.
Okay, Charlotte Sullivan, LBC Charlotte Sullivan with the COVID report. Thank you very much indeed. 27 is the time. We are talking about mental ill health. It seems like one or two sports stars have shone the light on this particular area. Of course, Prince Harry and William as well. They've done exactly the same thing, and not for a moment should that be considered a bad thing. But no one seems to be able to define what good or poor mental health actually is. Even if you lined up 1,000 experts, they'd come up with 1,000 different ways to look at it. It cannot be as simple as, are you content, are you happy, are you feeling positive? Because nobody is. I mean, a healthy response in many situations is not to feel that way at all. I mean, to feel anxious, to feel fearful, to be exhausted is perfectly natural. At a loved one's funeral, if you don't cry, there would be something of an issue, or at least feel emotional, right? So that's a healthy thing. I think too easily we bandy the term poor mental health around. Just a thought after Adam Peaty, our Olympic hero swimmer, said he was rather dismayed by people's reaction to his decision to take a month away from the pool to prioritise his mental health. Now, we used to call that a holiday. It sounds like I'm criticising. It's not. I just wonder if he's used this sort of catch-all phrase, mental health, rather too easily. Now, Ben Stokes, the cricketer, of course under pressure, if everybody's looking at you perform and do your thing, when you say, well, I've got to look after myself here, I'm going to take an indefinite break from cricket, I think people do understand that. But to prioritise mental health once again, Simone Biles, the same thing. Who knows? I don't walk in their shoes. I'm not inside their own mind. But this is my concern, is that it has become a catch-all phrase. And fitness versus freshness, always a balance for an athlete. Take a break, come back. But please don't use the word mental health lightly, is what I would contend. 0345 6060 973. Melanie's in Barnet. Am I onto something here or not, Melanie?
Oh, hello. I think you are absolutely right, and I welcome. It was high time for somebody to bring this out into the public. Diffuse confusion between people's natural feelings when things are not going right with them, or when they're too exhausted, when they're pushing themselves, especially within the sport, because they all want to win, so they push beyond, normal people's probably endurance, and obviously, some of them might not to continue with this. However, this has now become replacing the traditional, the normal use of the mental health when things are going wrong beyond the natural, normal human reaction to stressful situations. So maybe the best word would be stress, exhaustion, wanting to have a holiday, as you said.
Being knackered.
Yes.
Melanie, thank you very much indeed. The World Health Organization's definition, which emphasizes achieving a state of complete well-being, secured the support of less than 1 in 5 experts polled. The World Health Organized definition of mental health, a state of complete well-being. Blimey, then we're all mental. We all have mental health problems then, right? Complete well-being. When's the last time that hit you? 6:40 is the time. We digress just for a second. A Scottish government minister has said he's gutted and emotional at a possible case of discrimination against his young daughter. Hamza Youssef says his child was refused a place at a local nursery despite a family from a white background being offered a space that same week. LBC's Phil McDonald with more.
Mr. Youssef says his wife emailed Little Scholars Nursery in Broughty Ferry near Dundee back in May to try and secure a place for their 2-year-old daughter. But the couple alleged they were told by the nursery there were no available spaces, saying that was the second time they'd been turned down in that way by that particular nursery. And they've alleged that when a white friend asked if there was a space for her son just 2 days later, the nursery said they had 3 afternoons free. Hamza Youssef says he's extremely hurt by the rejection.
First and foremost, I'm a father, and my instinct is to try to protect my children, and I'm genuinely gutted and actually feeling quite emotional. I think that not being able to protect my little girl, who's oblivious to it all, of course, but at the age of 2, I've not been able to protect her from hatred that she's going to frankly have to suffer probably for most of her life.
Little Scholars insist they've done nothing wrong. They say they're extremely proud of being open and inclusive to all, insisting that any claim to the contrary is demonstrably false and is an accusation they would refute.